Morning, fish keepers. Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz. We've done it. We've done Friday. Chahoo. For coffee number 3, it is 3 times as good. All right, let's push some buttons. We've got John in the background. Hey, Brian, how you doing, buddy? Hey, John, how are you?
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Right, so obviously this week we don't have a guest with us. It's just us chit-chatting and general updates from the shop and whatnot. Also, when we just me and John, we like to have a theme or a topic to talk about later on. This week, John will do what we did last time, is we'll put a couple of topics up and let the people that are watching decide. John hasn't told me the 3 topics that we're going to work from, so over to you, buddy. You tell us what the 3 possible options are, and then we'll let the people have their pick after that. So fire away.
Okay. Right. Well, the first topic, I think, it could be interesting. I'm thinking I want to know what everybody's DIY cleaning tools are. We've all got them. Some might not like to admit it, but we all use something that can't be bought in a store. So I thought it'd be interesting just to share that with everybody. The next one is similar, but it's homemade fish foods. Now, you can buy store-bought homemade fish foods, like Repache, but there's also things like cucumbers, blanched vegetables and things. So it'd be really interesting to find out what people are using on their catfish and what's working, what doesn't work. And the third one, I thought, just for a bit of fun, would be the top 10 worst fish ever to keep in a fish tank.
Can we cut that down to 5? Top 5?
Top 5, yeah. You're the boss.
Okay. Cool. So 3 options. We're going to talk about either DIY cleaning tools or DIY apparatuses.
Yep.
Homemade fish foods or top 5. Oh, no. Top 5 worst fish. Man, I'm so underprepared. I forgot to plug my laptop in.
On you go, Cam. You just can't get the staff these days, can you?
Drinking my coffee.
Yeah, get your priorities right.
Drinking coffee and making TikToks.
So yeah, I think what we'll do is just like last week, we'll get you guys to just mention it in the comments. Remember, you can watch us live on Facebook, on YouTube under either Love Fish Keeping or the Fish Room NZ. And you can let us know which ones you want to use or which topic you want to have in there. And then we'll come back in about maybe 10 minutes. And obviously which one you guys decide is the one that we'll go forward with.
Yeah, cool.
That was last week.
Yeah. I also forgot to bring my water bottle in, so I thought I might as well grab that while I was waiting on the computer.
Quite right.
Again, coffee has overruled my life this morning.
So we're really man night tonight as well.
Yeah, it is relatively cold, Rochelle. I don't know quite what Gary's talking about. I know he lives further down south than what I do, but it's fairly chilly this morning. It hasn't been the chilliest today as what it has been a couple of days this week and last week, but it's not that warm, we'll put it that way. And it would appear that someone has decided to call me Harry Potter. Cameron. Okay, so I've got a little bit to talk about on my my list of things before we get on to potentially talking about, we'll be talking about a topic that we choose. So again, DIY cleaning apparatuses, homemade fish food, or top 5 worst fish. So whoever wants to speak about what, let us know what you feel like talking about, and we can bring it up once we're done with what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So some of you may or may not know, but I've decided to take the plunge a bit deeper into the TikTok life. How dare I? No, that was Ryan. So yeah, we're doing something a little bit different on that platform. I thought we might do daily vlogs of what it's like to be running a aquarium shop here. So basically 2 or 3 minutes each day of what I have to go through, what we do, fish care, general day-to-day business, and all that kind of stuff. So that's just a bit of a fun time. It's also been allowing me to take some other videos. Like yesterday, I released a video of the bedders that we've got in stock because I was kind of recording at the same time. A couple of people asked me for some videos of these, so we'll put them up like that. So hopefully doing that will produce a little bit more content of fish stuff as well, which will make everybody a bit happy. So yeah, if you are, I'm going to be shaking the booty on TikTok. I'm not going to be shaking the booty on TikTok. I'm not working on the thirst trap theory. I'm sorry. So yeah, if you're interested in that, jump onto our TikTok. It's just the Fish Room NZ, like everything, and you'll see some general day-to-day business of what it's like to run a fish store amongst a few other bits and pieces. And speaking of that, next week's guest we have on, we've got Jacob Thompson from Thompson's Aquatics. So he is a TikTok creator, I suppose, is the best use of the word there. He's very, very informative, very, very knowledgeable. He's a hobbyist just like you, me, John, and everybody else which is watching, which is really cool. And yeah, he's based his TikTok content on information base and sharing particular information on species of fish and proper fish care practice and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a fun time. And did I just say thirst trap to show off? You know what it means. It's one of the first times I know what something means. Generally, I'm far too old to know what things mean. What do we got from Michelle? When you scrape the algae off the glass, another fish you use, an old credit card. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, old credit cards, FPOS cards, all that kind of stuff works really, really well for scraping algae off. It's pretty effective. So we've got some new fish that'll be ready to rock and roll next week. So they're about a week and a bit through the holding period of this import. That's not the right word. This intake of fish that have come through. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got some really nice red phantoms, pepper corridoras, some gorgeous ember tetras, which I absolutely love. The rummy nose have all come through really well after the scare when they first came through. Some very, very nice bedders and some very nice purple rasboras, which I think are insanely underrated.
Rasboras are good.
Such a nice fish, those purple goldhead rasbora. Have you had much experience with them, John?
I've kept them once, and it was. I wish I had it in like a more heavier planted tank, because I've seen them in a display tank and they look fantastic with a dark green, like Java fern in the background. Yeah. But
they kind of just like the purple's a really unusual color to come through on the fish, so they give this total point of difference. And then like the glowing sort of gold around the head and then just on the top of the spine again gives another point of difference. I think they're just beautiful little fish, and they just kind of slept on and forgotten about quite regularly. So that's a shame, but you've got some very nice ones of them coming through. They're all eating very nice, and away they go. The price range of the Super Red and the Snow White Bristlenose, I'm not sure. If they're coming in through a different retailer, I don't know where they're getting them imported from. I hope they do go through. It'd be great to have some Super Red and some Snow White Bristlenose. I'm not the biggest fan of the Snow Whites personally, but the Super Reds I think are phenomenal looking things. I wish we could get the Green Dragons at the same time, but apparently they're unavailable. But I'm not sure on what the price is going to be for them, Rochelle. I'm sorry. I don't think they're coming through the normal wholesale means. So I don't think shops like myself and others are getting them. I think they're being special ordered for Suet Demetria, which is pretty cool as well. So hopefully a decent amount comes through. They get into some people's hands, and 18 months, 2 years times, they're as prominent as all the other Bristlenose. So we don't have the Super Reds, the Green Dragons, and the Snow Whites here in New Zealand. So it looks like there's someone doing a special import for some, which is really cool. So
I was fallen in love with a tank full of baby. Now let me get the name right here. They were long fin albino, or no, snow white, but they had bluish eye to them, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yes or knows, but they were tiny, but their long fins on them were gorgeous.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of the calico bristlenose that are running around here. There's sort of 2 or 3 different lines of them hanging around in New Zealand. Some of them are a little bit meh, but there's some other ones that are just absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, I don't have any calico, whether it's long fin or short fin. I'd like to get my hands on some. I used to have long fin calicos from a line down in Christchurch. Absolutely beautiful fish, and I would be quite happy to take on some short fin or long fin, or even both of them if I can get my hands on them.
Yeah, maybe about 10 years ago, there was a few people breeding them over here, and they were just everywhere in the hobby. But people were just snapping them up. Fish rooms full of them.
Yeah.
People would put them in every tank when they were small because they're, prolific algae eaters as well at that age. They're really good because they don't grow too big.
Yeah, it's like the golden variety of bristlenose. Like the bristlenose is bristlenose, give or take, but it just gives you that little bit point of difference because it's just a different color, something to look at compared to like your standard browns. I feel the same way with the calico and with the long fins. Like, of course, it's essentially the same fish, but with a longer fin version of it. But it gives you something slightly different to look at, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different tilt on it, isn't it?
As I mentioned just before, we did a video on the koi bedders that we have in stock at the moment. I think they're absolutely stunning. I'm not a giant bedder fan myself. The way that I enjoy bedders, well, that's a pretty color as opposed to that's a perfect shape or got great form on them. The right fin count and all that kind of stuff. The ray count, sorry. I'm all about the pretty look and the pretty color. But I can assure you that these bedders we've got are looking really, really nice. So yeah. The black with the white dots. There's snowballs, Orinoco angels, starlights. I think the peppermints might be like that as well. There's a few different plecos that are black with white dots hanging around. I think the vampire might be another one which we don't get here. So there's quite a few hanging around. So,
is there any reason why you're not getting those specific plecos, or is it just that they've not come in through the channels yet?
Like the vampire pleco, for example.
Just doesn't matter. You get some, but you don't get others. Is that because they're restricted, or because nobody's brought them in yet?
Yeah, most of it is to do with what's on our white list or our available list, what we're actually allowed to carry.
Okay.
There's things that we're not allowed to import, and there's other things that we are. And then like plecos are very seasonal, for example. So if they're out of season at the wild caught point, they're clearly not going to be in here. It gives periods of time where there's massive quantities of different various plecos on our supply lists.
Yeah.
And they're abundant everywhere, and then they'll just go with nothing, or the only ones that are there are the ones that they've imported and no one's been overly interested in. Which I always think, well, maybe it's a good time to buy them because at some point you'll have them for long enough and start spawning them, and then do a bit of a hoopla about it, and all of a sudden someone's interested in whatever fish you're looking at. So yeah.
I've been meaning to ask about that because for me, most plecos in general, all if one can survive in a body of water, they're all probably good.
Yeah.
So you'd think if you were allowed some, you should be allowed them all. But
yeah, it's just what's on the list and what's not, and that's well and truly above my pay grade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And knowledge, like I just work on what's on my I can buy list, not what's on the exporters can buy list sort of thing.
There's no point trying to fight it either.
Yeah, most of the wholesalers are, however, open to, like, say for example, someone wants XX fish. We can ask them, and they'll put that on their list of things to look for if it's legally allowed to be in the country. If they're legally allowed to bring them, and if they find it, there's a good chance they'll bring them in. So yeah.
Fair enough.
So we've had a wee question about the albino cherry barbs. They're going really good. I'm really liking the look of them. I'm still umming and ahhing what I do with them. Logic as a business says keep them. Logic as a business says sell them. Logic as me say keep them and spawn them. And then the other logic for me is keep them and spawn them, but I'm never going to do that, so I might as well sell them. So like I don't quite know what to do with them. I'm not a fish breeder by any stretch of the imagination. Never claimed to be, and probably never will claim to be. But it'd be good to get them into someone's hands that is willing to spawn them and produce them in good numbers. Maybe the only time they get imported, they might get imported again. I'm not sure, but they're very, very cool. Either way, I think they're really nice show-stopping fish. So I'm still not entirely sure what I'm going to do with them at this point.
Enjoy them whilst you've got them. Yeah.
I think they'll just look even more spectacular once you put them into the sales tank under some decent lights and that kind of stuff. So we'll see how we go. What have we got there? I will make some inquiries for you, Helen. It might be a seasonal thing. It might be a not available at export thing. It might be the wholesalers just haven't been willing to give it a chance, which is another thing that happens as well. But I'll send her an email for this afternoon and see what can happen there. Are they the bidders that were that Nick showed off on one of the Facebook pages the other day? Because if they are, they're absolutely stunning as well.
Yeah, the gorgeous betters out there.
Yeah. So we had some progress on the Clown Lodge tank, which I know is on the top of everybody's mind at the moment. That was a joke because it's clearly not. So I've ordered the base panel glass that we need. All of the sides and the ends have been cleaned up and they are ready to rock and roll. Had a slight issue with some bracing that I ordered this morning. The supplier rang me and said that his supplier couldn't cut them the size that I wanted. So I needed them 2.450 by 50 mil. Just for the bracing on the bottom, and they said it was too small for them to be able to work safely, which I thought was weird, but that's where we're at for that at the moment. So I have to work around that. The base that I cut off has those bracings sitting on it. It's clearly glued on it, and it's going to be a lot of work to get it off, but that might be the option. Or I might look at maybe making it slightly thicker, making it 100 mil instead of 50 mil, see if that might work. I'm not too sure. So that's the current snag at the moment for that. And the next current snag I've got is how I'm going to work the filtration. So I don't want to use canisters, although I possibly will. I would rather use a sump for this. Someone came in and had the really good idea of, I'll find something, and use this calendar here, of having the tank having an availability of like a normal, wet season type level, and then having a dry season type level, which I thought was kind of cool. So this is following up the conversation we had last week regarding, environments and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool option. To do it with a sump, I'm not too sure how that would work. And so we played around with a few ideas and weren't quite working out, and thought maybe if I was to get 2 overflow boxes on the end. So obviously one's going to be at the high point and then one's at the bottom point. So when we're wanting the high flow, we just block that overflow off. And then we want to go with the high point, we just block that one off and open that one up. And obviously when this process happens, we'll have to drain a bit of water out because the sump's unlikely to be able to take that much water at the same time. But have it that way so we could have a higher point and a lower point was where we were, where I was thinking about going with that. So I was looking at using the bean animal system, which I think will allow this. Cam, yes, Facebook user, Cam and Ryan, we have discussed this, and that's where we're at with that possible option. The problem that I'm now finding is trying to find the right overflow boxes to make that work. So I think that system of two tiers will work really well, but it's trying to find the overflow box to make them both work at the same time. Add that I've given myself a time frame of another 14 days. There's maybe no chance of that coming into the country in 14 days, so I might be singing a song to everybody. So that's where we're at currently at the moment.
Have you decided on tank mates for it yet?
No, that's
the clown loaches, sorry. But you were struggling to decide on a suitable tank mate.
I don't know. Why don't I need an overflow box if I'm drilling holes? If I'm drilling holes in my glass, why don't I need an overflow box? So, I haven't quite worked on tank mates yet. I'm finding that one quite a struggle as well. It's kind of difficult to find a lot of information that is on the wild of the environments of the clown loaches and stuff like that. I know you've linked me a couple of various articles which I've looked through. Predominantly, it seems like pearl gourami is one that is there. I don't want to use pearl gouramis because I've already got a display with pearl gouramis. So as cool as they are, so I've just crossed that one off. I did find a website that I forgot to link to you, and now that I've taken it away from my browser. I can't remember what it is now, but it had a whole list of. Basically, you could type in your species name and find out where it's from, and then it bring up a whole lot of other fish that are in that region.
Handy.
So there were some other fish, sparkling gouramis and stuff like that. So if I could find that again, that might help. I couldn't find any smaller, because figuring that the Finatics at the bottom is slightly bigger. Might want something round in the middle. But I couldn't find anything that really worked that way. So we'll see how we go. There were some bigger barb options that I thought might be an option, but yeah, I'm not entirely decided just yet. I need to work through the filtration option more. Yeah.
Get the foundations down first.
Yeah. I'd rather drill my holes and everything, have that all set up before gluing the tank together, for obvious reasons. So that's where that's at. I've got a few days until the base turns up before I can have to go through that decision anyway, but fingers crossed the glass turns up soon and we can get it all glued up and I'm solid on my decision on what setup I'm going to use. I might not even go with the 2-tier thing and just have it as a solidly full the whole time, just to make life a little bit easier. I'm not sure. The other thing that I noticed as I was sort of planning it out is where the tank's sitting to the right of me. There's not a lot of room. So if for some reason the tank or the sump goes bad, there's no way of getting that sump out once the tank's in place because you can't slide it from one end. It's got to come out that way. So I thought that possibly drilling a hole in the wall and getting the sump on the other side of the wall might be an option sitting out in the as well. There's a couple of things I just need to work through over the next little period of time before we go too much further, which, hopefully doesn't result in technical things like this making me have to sing a song, but we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. Next thing, fire away.
Do you have an estimated time for us to expect this tank to be finished, or is it very much just one day at a time?
End of the month is when I wanted it glued up and holding water. So it's about 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
I think once that's sorted out, I've got basically everything I need here other than some plumbing that I'll need to buy for the sump.
Yeah.
Most things are sitting here all ready to go. And then obviously I need to get some substrate sorted and some decoration in there. So if all goes to plan and the planning goes really well with the sump setup and that kind of stuff, maybe a month after that, we could have some fish in there.
Nice one.
Yeah. So
that'll be pretty exciting.
All sorts of cycled media hanging around, which we can use for it as well. So I've got multiple canister filters running, sumps running and stuff like that. So it's all locked and loaded. It's just getting it all sealed up and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
Or go through the whole completely. Everything's brand new, fresh and sparkling, dry, brand new, chuck it all in. Situation as well, which might take a little bit longer once it's up and running. But we'll see how we go.
Cool.
Yeah.
With it being a blackwater tank, lighting's not going to be much of an issue, is it? Or are you going to get big lights?
No, I'll do minimal lighting.
I thought so.
Need a little bit. So from the research that I've found, cryptocorones grow where clown notches are. The exact species we don't have here, but there is other various species that grow around there. So I'll probably put a couple of them in. Just because I like crypts and I think it will sort of work properly. I've got a wee design going through my mind how I want it to sort of set up and how I want it to look. So then the next point would have to be find some hardscape exactly the way that I kind of want it to look.
Yeah.
As well, being it's a big tank, it won't take much for what I think is a big piece of wood to not be a big piece of wood. So we'll see how that goes there.
Big chunky river pebbles, they're good to build that up and then put the soil over them.
Yep. Yeah, big round rocks.
There was a bunch of guys in Spain. They do like a biotope shop. I'll link. They done an international biotope thing with all the biotope specialists, and they used a huge tank, very similar to the one that you're working on, and they created a scene straight out of Ivan's book. But the scape that I think where you're going to go with this, they've done one very similar. it'd be worth watching what they did.
Yeah.
In the sense of just finding out how they structured it beneath the soil so that it didn't slide. And
yeah, that'd be cool if you want to send it through.
mm-hmm.
I'll watch that. So yeah, it's basically a big bit of tree on one end, some rock forming into sand, a lot of extra wood, smaller twigs, leaf litter, stuff like that, and then a couple of patches of cryptocorynes coming up and through it and around it is kind of where I'm going with that. At least for the time being, that's what's in my mind. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Got to get this, got to get the bracing sorted and the sump connection sorted before we go too far ahead with that. But we'll see how we are. So
yeah.
Three Idiots podcast came out again on Sunday. For those of you that have not listened to it or watched it, it's available on YouTube and on Spotify. So myself, Cameron from the Aquarium Project up in Auckland, who is somewhere in the chats under Facebook user, and Ryan, who is also in the chats under Facebook user, joined up, and we have started ourselves a podcast. This week we talked about the fun things about fish keeping and aquariums. The greatest content ever. It's a fun time. So podcasts go for about an hour. Like I said, they're on Spotify or on YouTube. You can find it under the same name, Three Idiots Talk Aquariums. It's very lighthearted, very easygoing. We're not there to take anything too serious. Just do what we like to do and have fun when it comes to talking about fish and talking about aquariums. So that's a fun time. If you haven't subscribed to us or you haven't listened to those podcasts, get into it. I think we're up to episode 15 or 16 or something around that mark. So yeah, we release one every Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. They come out. So apparently we're on other pod mediums as well, which I was unaware of. So there you go. Maybe just Google Three Idiots and see what comes up.
Be careful there.
Yeah. Cool. What else have we got? If there's any guests that you would like to see us speak to on our Finatics Friday Coffee Dates, please feel free to either send us a message on any of our social platforms or leave a message in the comments. I will try my utmost hardest to get them on. We're filling in through most of August or start of September now, so we've got a couple months worth of guests coming up and all lined up. There's some fun times happening with that. But if there's anyone specific that people want us to speak to or want to know some information about, all that kind of stuff, more than happy to have that conversation with them and try and get them involved. Whether it's old mate hobbyist down the road who's been breeding 50 different sorts of Danios in their garage for the last 500 years, or if it's some super fish keeper extraordinaire that has really taken a fancy over the years, then we can give that a nudge for you and see how we go. So if there's any options anyone people want to speak to, more than happy to have that conversation and see what we can get. As a general rule, not always, but as a general rule, most people that keep aquariums and keep fish are more than happy to talk about it because we don't often get the opportunity to talk about it. Not often people say, hey, can you tell me about this? And you'll have the availability to do that. So, yeah.
What I was thinking as well, when it comes towards the end of the year, we could find out from the viewers their most popular guest, which live they've enjoyed the most, and we can maybe try and get them back on for the Christmas special.
Yeah, cool. I'm absolutely down for that as well. Todd's asked if we've ever had the guy from Reboot Aquatics. So we haven't. I have asked Debbie if she would be interested in coming on and having a chat with us. She politely declined, saying that she is far more comfortable behind the camera than in front of the camera, which I have to respect. So we did try and get her on, being that they are importers. I thought it'd be a great option as well, importers and retailers. And I have tried one of the other commercial importers because we would like to obviously find out the process of how all of that works. I keep being told yes, but we haven't been able to lock down a date. So I'm still trying for that. I can assure you that I'm trying for that because I would like to get that information out and find out myself the process of importing fish. But at this point, no other importer has been willing to say yes to coming on, or at least setting up a date. Yep, we'll try and get Beyonce on because Beyonce is 100% fish related. I don't have any props with me, which I should have grabbed one before when I was out and about, but we have started doing tests on the NLS dough product and the gel product. So for those that don't know, it's a very similar product to Rapashi, Tropical have a gel-based product. Fang is another one from over in Europe, and I think there's a few more coming out. Basically, it's a powder you mix with water and it turns into a gel. So we're doing a few tests on that. There's 3 in the range. There's the everyday all-purpose color enhancing one. There is a algae max one, and then there is a dough product as well. So I'm about halfway through all of those containers, testing them out. Been keeping a few notes on that. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, put a post up on Facebook asking what people wanted to see in that test. So we've been following those guidelines as well as a few additional bits and pieces. So I'm getting pretty close to having enough notes to be able to formulate a video for that. So we'll probably release it on Facebook in a few weeks' time once I'm happy with that. Just a few more bits and pieces I need to know. I have contacted New Life Spectrum for a couple of questions that I wanted answered. At this point, they have not responded to me, which is a bit unfortunate, but we'll give them a bit more time. They're probably a busy company, and they probably don't care about someone at the bottom of the world asking them a random question about one of their products. So we'll see how we go. Fingers crossed I can get the answer that I want, so I can add that to the video when I'm doing it. But yeah, so we're getting close to that. So a couple of weeks' time, hopefully we'll start recording that for those people that are interested. So yeah, it's kind of a test to not whether we'll take this product on or if we won't take the product on as well. So yeah, it's been just really interesting testing it out. I think I finally managed to work out the issues we're having with the Aquarium Frenzy podcast. So for those that don't know, the videos that we have our guests on, I then turn into podcasts a couple of weeks later. But for a very long period of time, 2 or 3 months, I haven't been able to do it because every time I've edited it, it's either not worked, it's saved empty, it's cut in random different places. I've uploaded it and it's uploaded blank despite playing fine on all my players. So I think this week I managed to re-edit it on something, and I released the episode that we had Rebecca on with again. So that worked fine. So I think we should be good to go having our Aquarium Frenzy podcast released on Spotify from moving forward from this week onwards. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm using Anchor. I didn't know that I could edit it on there. If I'd known I could edit it on Anchor, I would have edited it on Anchor straight away, and I would have saved a couple of months worth of pain in the butt problems. But
you live and learn.
What's that?
You live and learn.
Yeah. I thought that the Anchor was just hosting. I think it's called the hosting of the podcast. Didn't realize it could be edited properly on there or anything like that. So it's doing exactly what I needed to do. So it's doing the job. It's hopefully we have no issues after that. The only real editing we do is just cutting the introduction out of it. But that was proving, and I was recording an introduction onto it, which was proving to be just not working at all.
You've just been ratted out.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, it turns out I did know. To be fair, we talk, I don't know, about a gazillion things each day, and if I don't write it down, then I kind of forget about stuff. So, yeah.
Post-it notes, Cam.
Yeah.
Use them.
Yeah, that would become a very, very expensive business expense if I wrote down all the stuff that I had to remember. That's why I've got still working manually on a diary, which seems to work fairly well.
Yeah, better than digital diaries anyway.
I can't keep up with him. I just can't keep up with him. A couple more things in my notebook before we get on to our potential topic. Do we have a overwinning arching topic that's come through, or we're all kind of even?
It's kind of hung. We're not going to go near the worst fish ever topic.
Okay, we'll cross that off.
It's between the cleaning tools, the DIY cleaning tools, or homemade fish food.
Personally, I'm a bit more keen on the homemade fish food, but we'll see how we go.
That would tie in with what you were just talking about a moment ago. So We maybe just go with that, but we'll see.
Cool. Yep. Electrician is coming in next week to give me about another 24 plugs. I'm excited about that, which means I can set some more tanks up that I've got sitting here.
Excellent.
That's just something that I'm excited about. Nobody else needs to be excited about, but I wrote it down because I'm pretty happy with that. Means that the tanks that have been sitting here that I wanted to spawn from, I have no real excuse not to spawn from them and use them because I can put some water in them and get them going. So I'm happy with that. And then last but not least, the other week we picked up some Grindel worms, which I haven't had before. So they seem to be doing okay, quite nicely at the moment. I'd like to get them thriving quite nicely and start feeding them out. And maybe if we can get them established, put them on the list of things that we'd like to potentially sell with when it comes to the live food. Still having issues with packaging things like the vinegar eels, just how you do that properly. I don't just want to be using soda bottles and stuff like that. I want to be doing that hopefully properly. And the white worms have really begun flourishing in the last week or so as it's gotten a little bit cooler. So they've been taken out of the fridge and they're just sitting on the floor now. So they're going quite nicely. So hopefully they start chunking up and producing a bit more as well. Quite nicely, so yeah. Should we get on to our topic then?
Yeah. So I think we should just go with the fish food one, the DIY fish food.
Cool, we can do that.
Just before we go onto that though, I just found something on my floor, and earlier on somebody mentioned they use credit cards, or bank cards, or hotel keys and stuff. This is a flipper cleaner. You've seen them. I've sent them to you, I think.
Yeah, we've got a couple, yeah.
And it's not got one in at the moment, typical, but that fits a bank card perfectly. And it's designed to, so that you can use all that, so you're not having to buy. And obviously, so, yeah. Somebody's manufactured something that uses a DIY cleaner. Which I thought was genius.
So furthering that a little bit, I quite like using brand new filter wool to clean tanks. Doesn't work stupidly well on hard green spot. It does work, but not quite as well as a card. But we've actually used rubber band some white floss to our flipper arm thing, or whatever you want to call it, and we use that to get into the back of some of our tanks as well. So that works fairly well, giving a bit of extension reach and stuff like that as well. So, yeah. Good. Just marry something up to make it work, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so we can talk about fish foods, homemade fish foods at that. So I don't know about you, but I've made my own homemade fish foods in the past. Being creative and throwing a whole bunch of stuff in together and seeing how we've gone.
Yeah.
I guess we can break it down to like natural food sources for like plecos and stuff like that with the vegetables. Cucumber is the most commonly used one. It's not one that I think is particularly good. A couple of reasons for that. One, it's predominantly water, so I don't think it's overly nutritious.
It's good for catching snails, though.
It would be good for catching snails. Secondly, it makes a heck of a mess in an aquarium, which really frustrates me as well. I think a better option to the cucumber is using courgette. It's got more nutrients in it, and it doesn't break down in the same way that a cucumber does, which I find incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
So it seems like a bit of a cleaner feed. It doesn't it doesn't float quite as much as cucumber as well, and it doesn't go that real soggy, gloopy mess when you go take it out the next day. So,
do you have a cucumber though?
Yep. Regardless, cucumber just goes all gross. We do sell screw cucumbers if you're interested, but yeah, I'm team courgette when it comes to if we're feeding any sort of a green thing like that.
Yeah, other options a lot longer as well.
What's this? Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Other option is a blanched broccoli stalk. That works fairly well. Or you can cut them lengthways and open up the insides as well. But that's a really good option, is the branched broccoli stem. And also mushrooms.
I've seen mushrooms.
Yeah.
With shrimp, funnily enough, but never as big of a shrimp. What was I going to say? I was going to say that the sweet potato. I've seen that, but I don't know. Sweet potato leaks that white starchy stuff, so it's always a funny one. I think you've got to blanch it beforehand. But pumpkin, squash, butternut squash.
Yep.
Oh, my brain's not working, but yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. So when actually the tank behind me I had at home before I sold it and rebought it again, I had it filled with various bigger plecos. I've tried all sorts: watermelon, sweet potato, pumpkins. What else? Apple, pear, all sorts of fruits and all sorts of vegetables. Most of them take pretty well. In a smaller tank, I would have to be worried about putting in too big of pieces and things like sugar contents and things like that, breaking up the water quality. But bigger tanks, it wasn't such a big deal. But most fruits and vegetables, bigger plecos and rasping catfish will take it for. It's just whether or not they're going to give the vitamins and minerals and stuff like that that's actually really required. Mushrooms, I guess, are quite likened to what would be similar to like underwater mushrooms and funguses and stuff like that grow, which is a wee advantage on that. But yeah, there's lots of different fruits and vegetables that can be used when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, got a good question from Rochelle again. Big one.
Frozen bloodworms, mushrooms, brine shrimp, and also rapashi community. And I've said I'm missing vegetables from that, and I have. If I mix that up and put them in ice cube trays, how long will they keep? They will keep a significant amount of time. I would be hesitant of defrosting frozen bloodworms and mysis shrimp and then refreezing it. That's just coming from a pure human point of view. It's not really recommended to freeze something, defrost it, and then refreeze it because the bacteria can take off in that point. But if you're using freeze-dried bloodworms, mysis shrimp, and that kind of stuff, I can't see that being an issue. I think Rapashi is like a 3-month freezer life or something along those lines. So I wouldn't be too worried about doing all that. If you're going to mix it all up and put it into a ice cube trays or whatever, and put it in the freezer, I think you'd be fine for.
So are we talking like mixing, like defrosting, mixing all up frozen foods, adding veggie flake, and then refreezing it again? And
that's the way that I've read that.
I've never had any issues with that either. One thing I have done is just mixing bloodworm with brine shrimp or tubifex, and just to make a bit different texture for them. And it's lasted just as long as it would. Sometimes when you buy stuff online like frozen food, it's defrosted when you arrive and you put it straight in the freezer, and it's fine.
Yeah. I go on the side of caution, and I say this from a business point. If I'm to say, yep, this is good, someone does it and it knocks out all of their fish, I feel that I'm responsible for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if I'm to do that and I have no issues, then I'm still okay with it. Does that kind of make sense where that's coming from?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. You've got to cover yourself, of course, because it's defrosted and refrozen. It does.
About a year ago, I got some bloodworms in from the supplier, and it took like 4 days to get here, and a vast majority of it was defrosted when I got it. I couldn't do anything with it, so I just chucked a post on Facebook and gave it away to everybody. I know plenty of people that refroze it and fed it, had no issues.
Yeah.
But the entire time I was recommending not to do that, because if I said do that and then problems come because of it, then it's in my opinion sitting on me. So yeah.
Well, I ordered about, I think it was 6 or 7, half a dozen bloodworm frozen, and they got delayed in shipping, and it never turned up. It was 3 days. It was soaking. It was completely defrosted when I got it, and I just put it straight in the freezer. It's still in there. I've never used it, but I'm, from past experience, I think it'll be okay. But I can understand where you come from, Cam. You can't, because there is a risk. So it's at user's discretion, as they say.
Yeah. I believe Cameron asked me if I stock the Ocean Nutrition Tropical Mix. Yes, I do stock the Ocean Nutrition Tropical Mix.
You've done a review on it as well.
Yeah, so I believe if you look through our YouTube channel, you'll find a review on that.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. So the other thing that people do is they obviously make their own fish food up, as Rochelle was sort of alluding to there.
Mm-hmm.
I've like many other people done that as well. Got a few mussels and some shrimp and stuff like that from the supermarket, some fresh fish, had some spirulina and all that sort of scenario. Cut it all up, chuck it in the blender, and then flatten it out and put it in the freezer and stuff like that. I know it's a really common thing for discus fish keepers to use. They do their own beef heart mix.
Yeah,
and that's absolutely possible. You can totally control what's going in there, what vitamins, what minerals you want to put in, and all that type of scenario. Generally speaking, most people consider that to be a cheaper option. I haven't done the maths on it myself to work out whether or not it is a cheaper option. But you can definitely make big quantities, often too much quantities when you're doing that. The other thing you can do when it comes to making that sort of mix up is you can actually chuck it in your oven and dehydrate it and turn it into flake, which is quite a fun time as well. So instead of having your chunked up frozen stuff that you're breaking into pieces and getting small pieces out, you put a really thin layer of it on an oven tray or onto a dehydrator on a bit of parchment paper, put it on a really, really low heat, and it just slowly but surely dehydrates it like a flake. And then you can crumble it up, put it into your containers or your Ziploc bags, and feed out your own flake as well.
That's maybe a project for me to do this weekend with the air fryer.
Yeah, so that's something that I've done previously before. It worked really well. Again, I don't know if it works out financially cheaper or not, but you do absolutely know exactly what you're putting into your aquarium that way, which I think is a bonus. The thing that I find a little bit amusing is when people make their own fish food up and then they put in like pellets or a flake essentially as a filler, and they're making up their own fish food because they don't want to be feeding their fish fillers.
Yeah,
pretty much every pre-prepared stuff has, but you're pouring in a container that's got the fillers in it already to use as your binder. So I've always thought that was a little bit amusing. But you can do it without the flakes and do it without the pellets if you want to as well. So there's a few options there.
There was like a YouTube video, somebody that made their own discus food. I can't remember it now, but they were using like mosquito larvae and like they were catching everything from their own pond, and they went down that route. Really interesting, and they were getting amazing results.
The other thing to think about if you're making your own is what are your fish actually eating to what you're feeding them. Like, for the best part, fish aren't going to be eating peas and broccoli and all that kind of stuff. So if you're making your own fish food to try and mimic what they're eating in the wild, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we'll put in that isn't actually specific to what they're eating. And so we make using those products to substitute something, or are we using those products to add vitamins and minerals because we can't find it in X amount of form or what have you. So that's just another thing to consider and to think if you're going to make your own food. I don't have a recipe off the top of my head on the one that I've used because it's been a long time since I made some. But yeah, it's definitely something that people do make their own fish food. And yeah, away you go.
I think if you've got like a fish room and lots of fish tanks, it could be quite cost effective because you're buying in a small amount of bulk ingredients and you're making much more than you would buying one of these tubs, and all the different tubs. But you can combine that into one food and feed it that way, then you're definitely going to save money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Working for somebody that's just got one tank, probably, unless you've really got a specialist fish, I think the effort and if you value your time as well, because a lot of time goes into making your own food, balance that out as well.
And there's people that'll make their own food on an ethical standpoint. They don't want to be supporting a company, or they don't want to be supporting particular practices that a company uses, so they'll produce their own. And there's lots of reasons why people will. I think most people do it for the knowledge of what's going into it and the economy of what they can make in whatever scale.
And they just like doing it as well.
Yeah. I mean, like the big container of Apache, I'm using Rapashi as an example because it's kind of a similar process. It's a $60 for a 300 gram container, makes up about 1.2 kilos of food, for example. So if you were to buy all the raw ingredients to make up 1.2 kilos of food, how much is that going to cost you, plus your time and all that goes with it? So there's a couple of options to think about that. A lot of people also put Rapashi into their own homemade stuff as the gel that helps it set, because it's obviously a setting agent in it as well. So yeah. Got a couple of questions. When making up your own fish food and you have Rapashi, how to key do you follow that instructions? So if you're talking about adding Rapashi as like the gelling agent or the bonding agent, I just pour it in and mix it until it's kind of at the texture and the consistency that I want, which is exactly how I cook, and that's exactly why I don't bake, because baking is far more precise. If we're talking about just making up Rapashi to make up Rapashi, I do exactly the same thing. I just pour an amount in and pour some water in and then kind of just wiggle it around until I get to the consistency that I want. I think it's 1 part powder to 3 parts water from memory. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. I'm not quite sure if that's exactly how you were answering or not.
Yep.
Any tips on helping the Rapashi not settle at the bottom when mixing with little jellies? So are you saying that when you're making it, it's the powder's going to the bottom and the liquid's going to the top? If that's the case, I would probably add less water to the mixture and mix it a little bit more, maybe even add a little bit extra powder to try and gel that up a bit more. And potentially using a smaller little container that you're trying to use it with. I've seen a couple of people use bloodworm trays quite effectively. It seems to be a really good size for that. And then freezing them into that sort of size container. So that might be helpful. Adding a little bit less water, adding a bit more powder, and possibly a smaller size container might be the option for you. I'm not entirely sure.
You're out of coffee.
I am out of coffee. It's okay. It's an hour. It's lasting me okay. To be fair, I don't think I need any more coffee anytime soon, but that's all right.
Fully charged for Friday.
What's that, mate?
They're fully charged for Friday.
Oh, I'm ready to rock and roll for Friday. So,
yes.
Cool. So if we've got any more questions regarding making food, those are the only real methods and styles that I'm aware of. Using blanched or fresh vegetables and with things like screwcumbers and stuff like that for your plecos and your catfish, and then making your own mixture up with fish fillets, prawns, shrimps, spirulinas, that kind of stuff. And then, yeah.
Here's something that I've seen. I can't remember where I seen it. It was probably TikTok. But somebody, whenever they lose a fish, and this account lost fish far too often, but they would then feed that dead fish to the tank. Like it was a monster, it was big fish, but they would then use the meat of that dead fish to feed the predators in the big tank. Is that ethical? Is that right? Or is it risky?
Sounds very cannibalistic and gross, but I guess at the end of the day, most fish are scavengers, and if they've found a carcass on the ground, they're going to rip pieces off it and swim away.
Exactly.
I don't think I could do that to one of my pets. Just my own. I've loved you for ages, so I'm not going to see this happen. I prefer to buy a fruit tree and bury it under that and let that replenish the soil. But I guess it also depends on how the fish died. If it got a beat down, then there's probably nothing wrong with it. If it's died of some sort of crazy disease or had something going on, it might feel like you're just adding the disease back into it. Doesn't seem quite that right to me.
No, it doesn't seem right either.
Yeah. Yeah, not for me. I wouldn't cut up my dead cat and feed it to my dog, so to speak.
No.
So yeah, it just doesn't.
Be wrong.
Yeah. Just back on the making the homemade stuff. If you're gonna set it as a block in the freezer, be careful your block isn't too thick because it makes it almost impossible to break it off after the point. So if you make your sheet really thin that you're putting it into a plastic container, it can either be snapped, or you can use the back of a butter knife or something like that and run a line along the bag. And then when it goes into the freezer, it sets and it's already got a little weak point in it, and you can then snap pieces off that way as another option. So, yeah.
Rochelle's asking, she's got a system where she feeds her fish and then fasts them for 3 days, and allows them to kind of scavenge and digest, which is a brilliant method. A lot of people do that. I do it. I'll feed every second day, and I've kind of always done that. Sometimes maybe every third day, but generally as a rule for myself, it's every second day. And I just think it's a good way of clearing them out and making sure you're not overfeeding, and it keeps the tank a bit cleaner as well. But she's asking if you can stretch that gap of 3 days further when you're making your own food.
Yeah. Regardless of making your own food or not, I think you can stretch that far more than 3 days. We fast here every Sunday because I come in, I'm just doing quick rounds, making sure everything's okay, and don't bother feeding. But we definitely fast every Sunday in the shop, and I've always basically had a fast day for all of my fish when I've had them. But as far as not feeding, 3 days is quite an insignificant amount. Generally speaking, there's enough stuff in the tank for them to pick at if they need to be. Might not be the same for every tank and every fish. Some of the really intense predator fish might need to be fed more often, but I generally say to people that are going on holiday and they're worried about feeding their fish, anything under a week is normally fine just to walk away with your fish. 99% time are going to be absolutely fine, especially if they're well conditioned and in good health before you leave. If you know you're going on a holiday, just feed them up for a couple of weeks, a little bit more. A week, I wouldn't have any issues with. I don't think there'll be any issues with fish starving in that time. There's generally speaking plenty of stuff in a decent ecosystem for them to pick at. Anything over a week, that might be a little bit different, but 3 days will be absolutely fine, and I have no hesitation or no concern not feeding for a week if you're going away or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've heard any negative effects of fasting a tank for even up to 2 weeks if they're healthy.
Yeah. I'll let you control the words. Them brevis. Damn brevis. Cool little fish. But,
sad faces, yeah.
So that's pretty much I think all we've got as far as our topic goes today, and everything else that goes with it. So,
is there anybody else want to ask anything or share anything before we go? YouTube viewers were quite active earlier on. They had a lot to say on the matter.
I think we probably need to premise it as well. Like fry need to be fed. Don't starve your fry. Just using the word babies there. Fry need to be fed. Don't miss feeding them.
That's a separate thing.
End up in a disaster. They need to be fed. But adult-sized fish or juvenile fish for the best part, a week shouldn't be too much of an issue whatsoever. So don't stress too much about that whatsoever. But as I said before, if anybody has any ideas for options for guests that they want to speak to, please just send us a message on Facebook, email us, message on this chat or what have you, and we'll see what we can do. More than happy to have those conversations with anyone that anyone wants to speak to, or get some information or some stuff like that from. So there's no dramas there whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Cool. I think that might be bringing us to the end of our Finatics Friday Coffee Date today. So thank you everybody for joining us. It was a good time. It was nice and active. So if you've enjoyed it, please don't forget to like it and share and follow and all that other good stuff that I never talk about. How many betters can you keep in a 65? That I can't answer because I've never been much of a better keeper. I can find that answer out for you. I'm sure.
I would say 2 or 3 at the very most.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be I'll premise this answer with it might depend on the fish because some of them are still going to be aggressive and other ones aren't.
Yeah.
But yeah, can we have more than one guest on the fish chat? Absolutely, yeah. We've got the ability to have up to 10 guests at one time from memory. So that'd be 9 with John, because John considered a guest on the program. So we can have up to 9 different people. I think at Christmas time we had 3 or 4 different people going on at the same time. We just basically opened it up to anybody who wanted to join in, invited them on, and away we went. So I know we've had Cam come on a couple of times just randomly as well, while we've been chatting here, and he's just said what's up. So yeah, we can absolutely have more than that. We might even schedule a viewers session where people that have viewed and been with us for a while want to come on and have a chat.
One thing we definitely need to do, Cam, is get Rochelle on with her son, who always waves to us.
Yeah.
He's got to come on.
Yeah. Yeah, we can absolutely have more people, and maybe, like I said, an option would be to just have a whole bunch of viewers come on and have a proper chat, or with a cup of coffee and sitting around the computer table and having a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Open fish.
Yeah. Okay, then. I've got plenty of stuff to do, which includes making some more TikToks. So happy days. Bud, got the bag. Bud, big time.
Yeah, down that rabbit hole.
All right, everybody. Hope you have a really good weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week when we have our guest on for our next coffee date.
Looking forward to it. Speak to you soon.
Okay,
Bye, guys.
Have a good one. See ya.